You are one of the only ones to challenge this notion that they are on the side of truth, that they do speak truth to power, that they will challenge power unless it's internal, Erik, in which case they will ignore and blame others, as they've been doing all along, right up to and including the firing of Chris Cuomo, as if he was the only person to blame for what happened in connection with his interviews and his connection to Andrew Cuomo, the then sitting governor of New York.
Right. So last year, when all this scandal broke, Chris Cuomo was taking 90, 100% of the blame for having crossed the line with respect to helping his brother. And, I know basically how closely all those people work together. And I know how closely Jeff Zucker was a hands-on boss at CNN. It just didn't make any sense to me that there was that great a gap between what Chris Cuomo was doing and what Jeff Zucker knew. So I said, this needs to be investigated. There needs to be some honesty and some transparency around this. And so I kept poking around, and, it turns out that the original sort of sin, if you will, the original journalistic sin, which was the Cuomo and Cuomo interviews back in the spring of 2020, the top ranks of CNN were very, very much personally involved in making that happen.
Mm-hmm. And now there's a question of exactly what did Jeff Zucker say to Andrew Cuomo at the time? What was Allison Gollust, Jeff Zucker's affair partner? What was her role in speaking to Andrew Cuomo? What did they say to Andrew Cuomo to secure the interviews? What kind of advice did they give to Andrew Cuomo themselves behind the scenes? Never mind Chris Cuomo. They're very quick to point the finger at Chris, and what Chris did was wrong. But how about these two who are now playing holier than thou? Now we know that they were playing holier than thou and ultimately wound up turfing Chris Cuomo, all while concealing what they had been doing behind the scenes.
Well, they weren't forthcoming about this, right? I mean, basically what you have is Allison Gollust, and I hear Zucker as well, although the CNN denies that he was directly involved in trying to book the former governor, but basically calling this guy and saying, please come on our air, please come on Cuomo primetime. I would say in most contexts, that's not a huge problem because news networks commonly deploy all kinds of people to get interviews. And I think that can be a healthy and perfectly fine sort of thing. But in this case, they were deploying personally their top staffers, their top executives, I should say, to get interviews that were blatantly in contravention of their own journalistic standards. So, hey, let me go and really hustle to get this interview that violates journalistic ethics. I mean,
and here's what I want to know. Here's what I want to know. What was said? What was said by Allison, who worked for Andrew Cuomo and was said to be close to him? What was said by Jeff Zucker? Specifically, in any conversations he had with Andrew Cuomo? Was advice given on how to handle any particular issue? How far did he go, right? Because we already had Donald Trump suggesting that Jeff Zucker had been guiding him, or trying to the extent anybody can guide Trump, had been guiding him with respect to Trump's interviews. Totally inappropriate. So did Jeff Zucker do that for Andrew Cuomo? I mean, how intimately involved was he? Because that would be an ethical stain as well.
That would be. I don't have anything reportable on that just yet, but obviously there was talk, right? There was conversation. So, and people chat, blah, blah, blah. I do think that your investigative focus there is well placed because Lord knows that everybody gets hammered for crossing the line. And Chris Cuomo took it on the chin, as you say correctly, for crossing the line into helping the executive chamber of Andrew Cuomo, or at least providing advice to the executive chamber on how to handle the governor's sexual harassment crisis. So I don't think that you can then turn around and have it revealed that there was something more than just straight up journalistic business on these calls. So.
Exactly right. And what of her relationship with him? I want to know more about how many times they spoke, and how many times she utilized that connection. Because if they're going to fire Chris Cuomo, for, stepping over that ethical line, then they need to be honest about what ethical lines they may have crossed and just how far over they went.
That's correct. And a germane fact here is that Allison Gollust did serve for a brief period, I believe in 2012, as the communications director for Andrew Cuomo. And so she had, familiarity with him, and they were tight. And then she went back. She was at NBC and then went back with Zucker when Zucker became the boss of CNN in January 2013. So there is that sort of revolving door aspect of this, which I think is always kind of questionable, sleazy, problematic, because, at some point these people lose sort of perspective on what profession they're in. Are they in politics or are they in journalism? And I think that, if you're a reporter covering this particular story, you want to keep those boundaries in mind and press these people on precisely what was discussed.
Can I ask you, so it's been widely reported now by many sources that several people within CNN are calling BS on this claim by Zucker and Gollust that it only started recently, the affair, that it happened, as she claimed, during COVID. My own reporting
during COVID,
my own reporting and my sources tell me that's a lie. That's 100% untrue. That this affair has been going on for years. Katie Couric alluded to it in her book, suggesting it may have been going on back when her daytime series was being executive produced by Jeff Zucker, which was prior to 2013 when he took over CNN. They were both divorced in or around 17 and 18 from their respective spouses. This would mean that they were cheating on spouses with one another at the office place. And it would also suggest that there's a reason why they don't want to admit that. If it had been going on for that long, Erik, then it means he promoted her up the ranks several times while he was her boss and sleeping with her. That's what it means. What's the reason for saying it only started recently? That's the reason. That's what I have deduced. The reason you don't want to say it's been going on for years is because they don't want people to know she got promoted time and time again while she was sleeping with the boss. If that's true, she needs to go as well.
Oh, well, that's very heavy. And I've heard a lot of, the discussion of this, that it was common knowledge that it predated that. I've also heard a little pushback that, no, this is relatively recent. I would say that the statement from Gollust was very carefully couched, right? She said that the relationship changed in the middle of COVID. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I don't think that you're off base in inferring from that statement that it turned romantic at that time. So I do think that maybe they're trying to be lawyerly or technical there,